When you go into a movie that stars Jake Gyllenhaal, you're probably going to get one of three performances. You could get one where he's trying way too much, he tries like a little in the middle, and it's actually pretty good, or he's not trying at all. And in what I watched recently, The Covenant, you get all three. So take of that what you will. There's a point that I like to have with movies, and sometimes, I'm talking about movies on a YouTube channel. I try to be like up and up on what's coming out, and like if I missed anything, I would be very upset. Like I had just heard of this movie called Sisu that's apparently really good, like a good action movie, and I don't think I'm gonna get the chance to see that in theaters. And this almost happened with The Covenant because I genuinely had not heard of this movie until like a week after it came out. And this was made by Guy Ritchie, a director that I really respect and enjoy a lot of his work, and also stars Jake Gyllenhaal, who I think is one of the best actors working out there right now. The only thing I knew outside of those two things with the director and the star was that it was a war action drama, something very different from the now usual Guy Ritchie heist movies, which are fun, but they get a little one note. So having no idea what this was, not even seeing like a trailer or even a commercial for this, which something is that rarely happens with me. I went into the theater, saw this, and it was pretty good. The movie's essentially split into two parts, and if you've seen the trailer for it, I don't know how much the trailer shows of this, so I'm gonna say what I saw if it because it's basically the premise of the movie and it can't really be spoiled, especially since I looked at the synopsis on Google and all that stuff to see, and it says this on there, so I don't consider it to be a spoiler. So Jake Gyllenhaal plays a U.S. Army sergeant, and Salim, the basically it's a two-man show at this point since they are the two main actors. They play a U.S. Army sergeant, I believe the title was, and an interpreter, and they're over in Afghanistan. This is set during the Afghanistan war, and over there, the Dar Salim's interpreter character saves the sergeant's life, and it's a very harrowing sequence in the movie. It was very intense and just also, which I think is a huge strong point of this movie, the action. So now we cut to Jake Gyllenhaal being back at home. He got sent back home after all of this, and he finds out that his interpreter wasn't given safe passage home since his interpreter is it also is working undercover with the Taliban, and he hadn't gotten safe passage along with his family. So now he has to go back and make sure that he does get safe passage and all of this. And it's a cool structure for a movie. It's essentially divided in half since it's like a 2 hour movie. The action isn't very bloody. I don't know the rating of this, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was rated R because mainly there was a lot of language. But there was also the action was very realistic and grounded and intense. There's nothing like on the level of John Wick here, but it fit into what was this smaller story here. Also luckily there was little to no shaky cam, which was something that I was a little worried about going into this because that's a pet peeve of mine in action movies. So I can say that's not there. I did mention earlier that it's essentially a two-man show with Gyllenhaal and Salim pretty much carrying a lot of the acting in this movie, but there are other actors in it. The other two people that I would have to mention is Alexander Ludwig, where he has been in a bunch of other things. Believe it or not, I recognized him in Race to Witch Mountain from like maybe 14, 15 years ago when he was a kid. The only difference was he had a goatee, and I just thought, oh wow, this is that. I don't know why that movie popped in my head, but it did. Also, there is a small appearance from Homelander himself, Antony Starr, and it's fun to see him in roles outside of Homelander. I did see that this is gonna go on Amazon Prime like later this year, so I'm sure Amazon's gonna use the presence of Anthony Starr to push this since The Boys is on there. But I have to admit, the big star here for me is Guy Ritchie himself. It's very nice to see that he can do more than heist movies now, which again, I said earlier, I love A good old Guy Ritchie heist movie. Apparently one came out earlier this year too, so The Covenant is a second movie this year. And just I'm just glad that he can do something else. This has no humor at all, essentially. It is very much a war drama. And in this era of Guy Ritchie, it's it's very unlike him to do that. And he did a pretty good job with it. So yeah, I think The Covenant is pretty cool. I had a lot of fun with it. I don't think it's the greatest thing in the world, but it's essentially held down by Guy Ritchie's pretty nice direction and a great duo performance from Jake Gyllenhaal and Salim. I'm gonna give The Covenant a 7 out of 10. I think you should check this out when it hits Amazon Prime or when you're gonna be able to rent it, and I think you'll have a good time with it. Let me ask you this question. What is your favorite Guy Ritchie movie? He's got a pretty vast catalog and of movies, whether it's from a decent live action Disney remake somehow, where I think his Wrath of Man with Jason Statham is very underrated, and I think that's one of his best movies, period. And I definitely think The Covenant's up there as well. So let me know what you think of your favorite Guy Ritchie movie. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya.